Welcome to Cameron's Conversations podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about why you should bother with bloody progress photos. Now, I'm going to give you a quick bit of context. The first time I ever did a progress photo was when I was at the very heaviest I'd ever been, and I felt like I looked like a bag of custard. Not good. And I'm not really someone who's struggled with body image. I just remember taking the photo and being like, that's not great, right? So that wasn't a brilliant feeling. And for a lot of people, that is the thing that puts them off ever taking them. Now, if I had a penny for every single time that a client has said to me, I wish I'd taken progress photos at the start like you told me to, then I would probably be able to buy a 5-pack of Freddos, which is quite a lot these days, to be fair. I think they're about £1.50. So it's been more than once, let's put it that way. There's been a lot of occasions where I've suggested it to clients, they've been a bit resistant, then they started doing them down the line, like, oh, bloody hell, I wish I'd done it at the start to see what the comparison's like. The thing that's really valuable about progress photos, and there's kind of a few things within this, but the thing that's most valuable is how motivating it will be as time goes on. Now, a quick comment on this. Often as not, people expect to see big visual changes in week one. Now, if you are relatively lean in the first instance with a good amount of muscle mass, you've been training for a while, you've not got that much weight to lose, you might well see that. And I definitely have seen that with clients where they are moderately lean in the first place, they maybe only need to lose a relatively small amount of weight. And we've seen quite a difference where they do actually look visibly leaner, right? There's some changes happening. For most people, it's too early. It's still worth taking, but the changes are very subtle, especially the first few weeks. So week to week, they won't see a massive amount of change. But the thing that's strange about visual progress is the cadence, or the speed at which you see change, increases over time. So in the first instance, you might go weeks 1 to 4 and be like, I can definitely see a change, that's good. It's not massive yet, but I can see something. Then from weeks, let's say that's weeks 1 to 4, then you go from weeks 4 to 8, then you're like, oh crikey, there's a big change. Then week 8 to 12, you're like, whoa, what a difference. Because what happens is when you have less weight to lose, less body fat, you start to see more definition come out anyway, and you start to see bigger and bigger visual changes. So for most people, weight loss starts at its fastest point, and then kind of eventually and very gradually slows down. Whereas with progress photos, it kind of feels like it's on this trajectory. Often as not, it's right at the end that people are like, oh my goodness, the changes are crazy. In the last 4 weeks, I can't believe how much my body's changed, because they didn't have that much left to lose. And I saw this because when I dropped 20 kilos, it's a kind of perfect example and perfect number. It's like kilos 1 to 5, like there's a big change, right? That first 5 kilos I pulled off, like you can see it in my t-shirts and stuff, and I have a few pictures, and I was like, okay, I can see my face is looking a little bit leaner, my tops were a little bit baggier, like or looser is probably the right term, like more comfortable fitting. I dropped another 5 kilos, and at that point, a lot of my tops went from being maybe comfortable-ish to being a little bit too loose. So there was quite a notable difference. The next 5 kilos, they were hanging off me, and the following 5 kilos, they were hanging off me again, often in a size down from where I'd been. So the point is that the speed of change visually speeds up as time goes on, which I think sometimes demotivates people from taking them in the first instance, because A, they're not happy with their starting point, and it can be a bit uncomfortable to see something where you're like, crikey, didn't realise kind of the shape I was in. And B, you kind of might think, oh, well, I've not seen that much change in the first 2 weeks, but that doesn't mean in the first 2 months you won't, right? There's a big difference. The reason, though, that I'm so passionate about it is seeing the number in the scales change is great, but when you compare those progress photos side by side, it makes a huge difference, because we see ourselves every single day. I mean, I'm sick of seeing myself. If I look at my laptop, I can see myself, right? I constantly am on video, right, doing client updates and all the rest of it. So I see myself all the damn time, but I'm not likely to notice those huge changes because I see myself so bloody much, probably more than most people do, right? But everybody sees themselves a bit in the mirrors and all the rest of it every day. So you tend to not notice the changes so much. So when you then compare them in front of you side by side, and I use a little app called Layer on my iPhone as well, because sometimes people ask how you put photos together. That's how I use it. And it's like the world's simplest app too. And I see such a difference in so many clients when they are 4 weeks in, 6 weeks in, 8 weeks in, 12 weeks in. And when I show them that, they're like, oh my God, what a change. And it often is not, they'll be like, oh, Cameron, that gave me a real boost today. Like, it was really good to see those photos again and like see the comparison. I can see how much I've changed even in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So it's hugely motivational. The other thing that's great about it is that everybody's weight loss experience is going to be a little bit different. I have a few clients right now, I can probably think about 4 or 5, where they've all had good weight losses. I think people would classically think for the body weight they're at, that they've had good weight losses. But if I told you, or I gave you a photo and said, right, here's a picture of my client, so-and-so, and you were to sort of guess how much weight they'd lost, you might be like, okay, they've probably lost 10 to 15 kilos, and they've actually lost 5 or 6. Sometimes the visual changes are far more significant. Now, the other cool thing about this is to do with training, is our body shape changes with training. When we start training, you start to build a little bit more muscle. If you've exercised before, you get a bit of a recomposition effect where you build it even quicker as well. So your body shape starts to shift. And this is a really common thing, is that clients will say to me, a lot of one-to-one clients who have kicked on, continue to lose weight, will be like, oh, I'm back at the weight I was when I was 25 or 35 or 30, whatever it is, it's arbitrary. They say, oh, Cameron, I'm the same weight I was at 30, and it's 15 years on, but I look better because I'm actually in much better shape. And that often comes into it too, is like the way you might look at 70 kilos when you're not weight training versus where you might look when you're 4, 6, 8 months into weight training might be quite significantly different as well. And if you're someone who's lucky enough to be a really good responder to training, rather than, you're always going to see a change. Everyone does, right? You always see a change. But I have some clients who the visual changes are bonkers. Like, even I couldn't guess right how much weight they'd lost. I know because I see the numbers. But if I was to take an educated guess, I'd be like, oh, they're a good couple of stone down. And you're like, oh no, they're like 4 or 5 kilos, 10 pounds down. And you're like, holy, it's like, that is a wild visual change. Like, there's loads and loads of examples of this. And I even have a client who's probably the best example of this, who came to me. They didn't have a weight loss goal, but they wanted to get in better shape. 9 months on, we're sort of doing some comparison photos, and it literally looked like they dropped 10 kilos. It was bonkers because their body shape had changed so much. There was so much more definition. There was so much more in shape. It's incredible how much change there is. Now, they were probably a bit of an outlier where they responded particularly well to training, but even so, the changes are massive. And you cannot see that on the scales, right? The scales do not tell you that. They just show you what the number is. And I think that's really, really important as well, is that there's a little bit more to this than just weight. For my clients, what I get them to do is progress photos, measurements, and weight. Because there's also weeks where your weight will be a cheeky wee bugger and it won't move that much. You'll get in your own head, then you look at your progress photos and your measurements and be like, okay, well, I've lost 3 centimeters and my progress photos look better, so screw the scales. Who cares what they say? That helps a lot too. So this is the other thing, and I think this is critical, and this will be the topic of the next podcast actually, is this whole idea behind the getting caught up in the scales throws people off. And actually, when you have other markers of progress photos, measurements, that's what keeps you in the right headspace and then allows you to keep kicking on. Then the scales drop anyway, like 3 days later, there's a random huge drop and you're like, why the hell didn't they drop for a few days? A perfect example, my weight was like 83.6, 83.5, 83.3, 83.5, 83.6, 72.7. Sorry, 82.7, not 12 kilos off, 82.7. So all of a sudden, overnight, it's dropped 0.8, 0.9 kilos. Why did it drop like that? Don't know. Couldn't tell you. It just happened, right? That's the way weight loss is. It's erratic. It often isn't like this nice smooth line down. It's often these juttery bits and then suddenly, oh, big drop. And then it'll kind of probably mess about a little bit. It'll jump up a little bit for me. Then it'll come down a little bit and it'll be about the same. And then I'll see the same thing happen again. That's what real life weight loss looks like. So having progress photos makes that easier. Anyway, that is enough on that one. I just wanted to cover that off briefly. If you are interested in one-to-one coaching, the link will be in the show notes as well. Otherwise, I will speak to you next episode.